Today we are with a member of the opposition, Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Member of Parliament, Kabir Hashim.
So in effect, we virtually moved the entire UNP into the SJB. So we don't feel bad because we really represent what the UNP fought for. I think Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe had been there for a long time, and UNP had lost its magic.
How long do you think the SJB is going to take to organize and mobilize enough to start winning elections?
It's about how soon we want to win. Our target is a national election. We believe that the chance for the UNP to really survive is obviously to merge with the SJB. It looks like the government has failed absolutely in this case. People are getting worried about the incompetence.
But what is your response to this latest attempt to surveil or latest attempt to keep an eye on the community?
On one side, he's saying people must go to Sunday schools, and then they're trying to ban for one sect the Sunday schools. Shouldn't they have had a dialogue? And then the community itself would have come up with the ideas on how to do this. This can drive normal people to extremism. There are people who try to harp on, live on these things.
Welcome back to the debrief. Today we are with a member of the opposition, Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Member of Parliament, Kabir Hashim. Mr. Hashim, thank you very much first for joining us on the debrief. My first question is taking you to the start of the SJB. You were a long-time UNP member. Your father was also involved with the UNP. Your move to the SJB, was it a difficult move? How tired were you of the leadership at the time for you to make a move like that?
Well,
Can't have been easy.
It was definitely perhaps one of the most difficult political moves I would have made in my lifetime, because we've been, you could say, born and bred UNPs. But apart from that, we believed more so in the UNP principles, the ideology that the UNP always stood for. And we had protected the party over years, had gone through many challenges, stood up for democracy in the hardest of times. So the move itself was difficult, but it made it easy because it was about representing those people who believed in the UNP. To ensure that we continued the representation, we knew that we had to make a break with the challenge that the SLPP was posing. We had to make that change because we understood what people at the bottom had been thinking about the UNP. The cadre was disgruntled, unhappy about not being able to keep power, not being able to effectively deliver for the cadre. So therefore, it was time that we thought anew. We also felt that the political dimension was changing in the country, and it was time that the UNP had to come out with a new face. So in effect, we virtually moved the entire UNP into the SJB. So we don't feel bad because we really represent what the UNP fought for. Yeah,
because one of the, I don't want to say criticisms, one of the things that people have said about the SJB is that it is pretty much the UNP adhering to the same principles and values that the UNP stood for. Do you agree with that? What makes it different?
Well, it's completely wrong to say that we are just the UNP with a new name. That's not right. The basic principles, the ideology, yes, we have based ourselves on the values that the UNP believed in, because those are the common values. But for a long period of time, a few of us have been fighting within the UNP about changing the outlook of the party to become more modern in its outlook. Because we remember how J.R. Jayawardena transformed our party. He made a paradigm shift kind of in 77. And we thought anew. We came out, people branded us as this Hatta Hate Daruo. That's how the UNP was looked at. after that period, after JR's change, it was JR's change that made us strong enough to at least face the electronic age, where that was the third industrial revolution. To an extent, Sri Lanka managed to catch that because JR made some effort. But today, in the fourth industrial revolution, which is in a digital society, we had to look beyond what the UNP really represented and what Sri Lankans wanted. And that change was not forthcoming in the last couple of years. So now the SJB has certain basic principles from the UNP, but we are definitely evolving as a new party with a new outlook, especially in terms of economic decision making, economic policy, also about the political and social position of the SJB, So the challenges are different. And I think the SJB, because it's branded separately today, we can actually think anew. And right now we are in the process of expanding our ideology, bringing in new thinking of our new economic vision, thinking of secularism today in the modern context, how to bring all Sri Lankans together on one platform. So that's totally beyond what the UNP has been thinking.
Okay, speaking of J.R. Jayawardena, J.R. Jayawardena and Premadasa were both seen as popular leaders compared to the old guard of the UNP. Are you saying that after J.R. and Premadasa, there was perhaps a lack of a popular leader to capture the popular imagination, which is something that perhaps the SLPP managed to do, and now you're looking for a leader that can capture that sort of thing? Is Sajith Premadasa that leader?
Well, I wouldn't say that between 1994 and 2020, right now, from 94 to present, that the UNP didn't face up to the challenges posed by the SLPP or the UPFA. It was just, perhaps there were a lot of other things that happened. The war was a key issue. And if you look at 1999, the presidential election, Ranil Wickremesinghe was near winning that election. But in the last minute, there was a bomb explosion where President Chandrika Kumar Tunga was injured, and that tilted. It was a week before the elections. It was bad luck. In 2005, in 2001, we took power. In 2005, in the presidential election, Ranil Wickremesinghe again was a strong contender. And if not for the LTT boycott of voting, then again we might have made it. So we had a bad experience. But over time, see, everybody has a period in politics. You have your peak, right? I think Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe had been there for a long time, and UNP had lost its magic. And I do believe that Sajith Premadasa is a very popular leader. He is popular. He's, I think, could stand up to any one of the Rajapaksas effectively. But the question is that, are we looking only for a popular leader? We've been looking beyond that, and we find that today Sajith Premadasa has the courage to stand up on principles and on issues and take a stand like the UNP did before, even though it is difficult to stand up for the right things. So we believe that he's not only a popular leader, but that he's a courageous leader who has the courage to stand up for the right things, for the things that we believe in.
Right.
So therefore, we think that we have an opportunity of moving forward, and we also feel that he has the intellectual capacity to take this country to greater heights.
How long do you think the SJB is going to take to organize and mobilize enough to start winning elections? Because even if it's the provincial council election or even the presidential election, the next one, do you think the SJB will be prepared by then?
It's about how soon we want to win. It's not about how long we'll take. It's up to us, because we've become politically quite smart, because we've realized that the 2019 election was well manipulated by the opposition. And it was an election that we shouldn't have fared that badly. We also think now we know exactly what we should do as a force. We can feel the groundswell now. But we believe in democracy. The government was elected. A popular mandate was given to this government. We've seen how this government behaved when they were in the opposition. They came in through the back door, broke all democratic ideals and snatched power. They pushed the Prime Minister out. We are not interested in taking power by those means. We believe that we represent the people. If the people rise up and the people say they want to change, the SJB is ready to give leadership. But we also have some things that we need to get done. It's not about power. It's not about the hunger for power. It's more about this country. Right now, we've realized that the voters have become very angry about how governments have performed. So we are looking at putting ourselves right. And we believe that we are now in the process of getting ready. We think that our target is a national election, which we are looking at, but we want to be well prepared much before that. So if the opportunity does arise, if there is democratic space that there is time for a new government before the usual time, for sure, the SJB is not going to take any chances. We are mobilizing ourselves. We are getting prepared, not only to win elections. That is one thing. Winning elections is very easy, honestly, because in 2015 we did the unthinkable. When Mahinda Rajapaksa was at his peak, we sent him home. So that's not the difficult part. About taking government back is very easy, but what we are thinking is beyond that. When we do take government, how do we do the right thing for the country, and how do we deliver to the people, because that will ensure that we can carry out our policies for a period of time and transform this country. That's what we are thinking about, a paradigm shift.
There is some rumor, some talk about the UNP and the SJB, a possible merger under the leadership of various people. Do you think a merger between the UNP and the SJB will be seen as a betrayal, perhaps, of some of your constituents? Like, would they think that way?
Well, it's something like this. The SJB is building up, as I told you, its own values, its own principles, its ideology is becoming branded now. And we would only be too happy if the UNP, anybody in the UNP wants to join us. And we've always asked the UNP to allow Sajid Premadasa to take over. We want to merge these forces because that's the original force that we started with. And we believe that the chance for the UNP to really survive is obviously to merge with the SJB. But it would definitely be conditional. There would be, because we would be thinking about the new thinking in the SJB, the new leadership in the SJB. And we have still space for the UNP to be on the same platform. Because we have also, with our new thinking, if you look at us, it's like, a child, a mother gives birth to a child, and usually it's the parents' genes that goes into the child. The child gets, to an extent, the child's character is molded by the parents' genes. The child can't choose it, right? But we have been lucky enough that when the SJB was formed, we needn't have taken all the genes from the UNP. We could choose what we wanted. Right. And we could then move forward and form our own character. So in that sense, for the 21st century, we think that this is the new force and that the UNP should become part of us, to join us. And we are also looking at space, not only for the UNP, for other parties to come on the same platform and work with us. You could be a leftist, you could have different thinking, but you would still have space to be on the same platform as the SJB. The SJB will represent a wide range of people.
So not a UNP-led merger, but an SJB-led,
Yes.
some kind of
Yes.
alliance, perhaps.
Yes.
I'd like to move to the Easter Sunday terror attacks, which has been a topic right now because the Presidential Commission of Inquiry report came out. What has your response been to, what is your response to the report? Do you think it's a thorough investigation? Do you accept the recommendations?
If you look at the TOR that was given to the commission, I think they have done their share of their duty. They were given a certain scope and they've done their job. And I believe that some of the recommendations they've made are excellent. But it is not comprehensive because their mandate was as far as they could go. You couldn't expect 4 or 5 senior judges to sit and then try to figure out how to find out the terrorist organizations that were behind this or who was really the mastermind, because that would have taken a different set of people to do that. So my contention is that this commission did its part. There might be certain issues with the report, it might be not comprehensive, but that's because they couldn't cover everything. My issue is that the president was elected particularly on a mandate that he would provide national security as a priority to this country and that he would develop the most technically sophisticated and advanced intelligence service perhaps in the world. That was how it was interpreted. And that he would get international support, that we would have a very strong intelligence service. And also on page number 12, if I believe, page number 12 of the Saubhagya Dakma, which is the manifesto, the president very clearly says that as soon as he is elected to power, he would appoint a commission of inquiry with absolute powers to go into the entire process of the Easter bombing and empower them to ensure, to find out the people who are behind this, and he would then make sure that they would be arrested and action would be taken and they will be punished according to the law.
Right.
Now, from 2019 to this date, the president hasn't appointed any commission. As regards the Easter Sunday bombing, the president is fortunate that he can hang on to the former president's report, Maithripala Sirisena's report, because that is the only one that has done anything. So it's useless criticizing that commission. The president should have put a commission, should have got the CID, should have got the Interpol, should have got to the international intelligence agencies and found out what had really happened. So here we are, after 1.5 years, still not knowing who the hell planned all this, who the hell was behind it, right? The masterminds. So, in a sense, everybody thinks that the president has failed when he talks about a national economy. Now the people damn well know that he has failed regarding national security because nothing has happened in the 1.5 years. And then, naturally, people are beginning to get worried. So, this commission did whatever it could.
Do you think there's a lack of political will in actually setting up? Because now there's a cabinet subcommittee that has been set up to look into this report. Do you think the cabinet subcommittee will make maybe recommendations that will push this towards prosecution? Similarly, I think the AG has investigative reports with him. Do you think the AG will actually move towards prosecution?
Well, I'll give you a good example. If that was the case, it's very clear that there were 2 incidents which people are beginning to worry that the government is not doing its job. Is there something happening? Is there some cover-up? because one of the women who was married to one of the bombers, fled to India. And the news is that she's in India. Up to today, the president has said in his manifesto that he will have the best of relationship with international intelligence agencies. So it was just a phone call away to ask the Indian intelligence to make sure this lady is brought back to Sri Lanka and questioned, because she was very much involved in the whole process. 1.5 years and nothing has been done. They haven't even contacted them or got any news about it. Number two is that during our government, when these investigations were going on, and soon after the statues were damaged in Mavanalla and there were various incidents, before the Easter bomb attack, there was our intelligence agencies, the CID, was investigating Saharan, and Nalaka Silva was on the verge of, he had issued an arrest order on Saharan. At that moment of time, Namal Kumara, a guy called Namal Kumara, as alleged by the former president, had made a complaint to the CID saying that there was an assassination attempt on the former president and the former defense secretary. And as a result, Namal Kumara also said something about Nalaka Silva. Nalaka Silva was pushed out of his position and the arrest order was also held. It looks very suspicious, right? And at that time, President Maithripala Sirisena says, why I had to sack Ranil Wickremesinghe in that 52-day fiasco was because Ranil Wickremesinghe had a member of his cabinet who was behind this assassination plot. That's a very serious allegation. And Saharan's investigation also was hampered by that. So shouldn't the president have got the CID to investigate this fully and find out what happened? Who was the cabinet minister who was involved in trying to assassinate him and the former president? And why did that hamper Saharan's investigation? Why was his arrest delayed? These are very suspicious things. So if the government couldn't even give an answer for that in Parliament when we question them, then there's something fishy. So that's the whole problem. It looks like the government has failed absolutely in this case. Does it lead to a cover-up? Or is it just that they're incompetent, like, they can't even find Arjuna Mahendran? Yeah. Or they can't even find the rice that is hidden in the country. Because today rice is 210 rupees a kilo, right? So it's crazy. People are getting worried about the incompetency.
So lots of unanswered questions, and at the same time, not just failure on the part of national economy, but also failure in terms of national security and inefficiency as well. Do you stand with what the Archbishop says in terms of his reaction to the report?
Yes. The Archbishop was promised before the elections by the president that he's going to bring these culprits to book. And the Catholics suffered. It is fair enough that they feel that justice is done. From the side of the Muslims, the Muslim community suffered because Saharan used the religion and the Muslim name, whilst the entire Muslim community rejected him. But the whole Muslim community was castigated. So I think the Archbishop was right in saying that there are a lot of unanswered questions. The report comes out. As I said, because of the limitation what judges can do, they give over the report. But the AG says, I can't prosecute anybody unless I have more details. And if they are going into prosecution, have they got enough information about the people who are really behind it? And those 2 or 3 serious incidents where the government to this date has, if the investigations were secret, at least they should be able to come and tell Parliament, okay, it's ongoing, this is what we are doing regarding this woman Sara, this is what we are doing regarding the Namal Kumara incident, but the government has no answer. So it's absolutely worrying, and therefore we stand with the Archbishop in saying that the government should come out with the people behind this, and the government is responsible for that job.
Okay. My very last question. Just recently, the Public Security Minister, as you know, has now proposed a ban on the niqab and the burqa, as well as 1,000 madrasas will be closed. Now, we know the current situation and how the Muslims en masse have been victimized by the fact that one person or a group of extremists within the ethnic group have did what they did. And like you rightly pointed out in Parliament, not just the Catholics became victims to this, Muslims themselves have become victim to this. But what is your response to this latest attempt to surveil or latest attempt to keep an eye on the community?
Well, from what I've seen in the news, lots of people believe that when the sugar scam suddenly hit the screens, the government needed a diversion. So we don't know whether it's a diversionary tactic,
Right.
or whether the government is really thinking straight, because when this incident, Saharan's incident, occurred, the Muslim community leaders, including the political leaders, sat down, discussed with the previous government, our government, and said they are willing to make the reforms that they felt that they have neglected, looking at the community where certain fundamentalists have tried to take over some of our religious practices and corrupt them. And there was a dialogue that was going on. Shouldn't it be a government's responsibility that it discusses with its citizens, its people, when it's taking some action? If they were to do something regarding a religious issue that was affecting a community, shouldn't the government have called up the Muslim leaders, the political leaders, the religious leaders? There is a Department of Muslim Affairs, people who are qualified on the religion, call them up and discussed with them about the burqa and the niqab and the hijab, and ask them what they think, and that there is an issue to national security, right? And about the madrasas. Madrasas are Sunday schools. Right? When you say you're closing all the Sunday schools, I saw Prime Minister Rajapaksa saying a few days ago at a meeting that all Buddhists must go to Sunday schools. Same way he should be saying all Muslims should go to Sunday school, not ban the Sunday schools. So I was shocked. On one side he's saying people must go to Sunday schools, and then they're trying to ban for one sect the Sunday schools. Shouldn't they have had a dialogue, and then the community itself would have come up with the ideas on how to do this? And it would have been very successful. Today, by going and imposing this, the whole international community has gone up in arms. Right? We are looking like, this is looking so stupid. So I'm seeing that this government is either inexperienced or they have incompetent people in positions of power. And it's very dangerous, because this can drive normal people to extremism. There are people who try to live on these things. It's much better for the government to talk to people and resolve these problems. It's very easy. I mean, the Muslim community will support most of the issues, but they would have had to discuss on how they were going to do this. So we were very surprised and disturbed about what happened, and especially with Honorable Ali Sabri being the Minister of Justice. And then the government makes a statement like this. There's a process in any government to bring in new laws or to take out laws.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hashim, for taking the time to speak to us, and I wish you all the best with mobilizing the party and growing it so the party can contest at future elections and do well. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.